Welcome to Greenhouse Grower to Grower, the podcast where we talk to growers from across the greenhouse industry about market trends, innovation, their biggest challenges and opportunities, and more. I'm Brian Sparks, editor of Greenhouse Grower. Greenhouse Grower's July cover story features a closer look at how university horticulture departments from across the country are attracting new blood to the industry while fostering career development. I had the chance to talk to 6 department heads about a wide range of topics, and the conversations were so informative there was no way for me to include all of their input in one article. So we're using this podcast as a way to offer extended versions of these conversations. In this episode, I talked to Dr. Desmond Lane, head and professor of the Department of Horticulture at Auburn University, about some of the unique programs Auburn has in place to engage both students and industry professionals, including working with culinary experts.
At Auburn, we've maintained a steady and strong enrollment now since I've been here. I'll be starting my 7th year in July.
Mm-hmm.
And we have 4 different concentrations in our department, and then we actually have a horticulture degree, and then we also have a agricultural sciences degree, which is a more general degree that includes horticulture classes.
Okay.
And then, but generally speaking, our enrollment is trending up. We have probably the fruit and vegetable major would be the strongest one right now in terms of enrollment, and it is seeing increases over time.
Okay.
The nursery greenhouse enrollment is also good. The one area where we're dropping is more the landscape design side, but what's interesting is that Auburn is like you talk with Leo at Georgia, or you talk with any of these other department head friends of mine, our schools are getting progressively more difficult to get in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we're not seeing as many freshmen coming into horticulture straight out of high school.
Okay.
A large proportion of our students that come into horticulture are either transferring within Auburn once they get here, or they are coming from community colleges. And part of that is because, we have like almost 50,000 applications for about 5,000 seats. So 1 in 10 are getting here.
Mm-hmm.
And the GPA and the SAT scores and everything have to be really high. And a lot of kids that are, whether they're from a more of a traditional farming background or whatever, maybe they're from rural schools and they don't have access to the AP courses, those types of things. They may not meet that high threshold to actually just get in.
Sure.
But they're excellent students and smart and hardworking. So they may get here through different paths, or they may come in, they're in a different college, and then they get exposed to what horticulture is, and they're like, man, I'm interested in engineering, but from more of a biological standpoint and more of a agricultural standpoint, and they may transfer in from engineering or some other major that may not even be related.
Okay.
So we do have strong enrollment where we are offering at Auburn in our department, we offer over $100,000 a year in scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
And we have pretty much 100% job placement.
Okay.
So all of our students get multiple job offers. Some of them choose to go on to graduate school, but we got 3 different undergraduate clubs that students are involved in: a horticulture club, a landscape nursery club, and an organic club. And we have strong internship program where students can go and work with industry for a semester or a summer.
Okay.
And get that kind of experience. Twice a year, we have a career fair that brings in industry to engage the students, whether they're talking about possible summer jobs or internships or even full-blown career jobs when they graduate. And the last 2 years now, we have actually had a career fair dedicated exclusively to horticulture because the industry demand is so strong.
Yeah.
So I feel like our students are getting out, they're getting good jobs, and they're staying with horticulture. Many of them are.
Okay.
And it's not just, the more traditional path that students have taken before. Now they're working for companies that are greenhouse companies,
mm-hmm.
like Bonnie Plants, like others that are training folks in controlled environment agriculture. And we've had students that are working for those kinds of companies now that maybe our students weren't looking at years ago, but now they're seeing a lot more options in that particular space.
Okay.
So it's a good time. We've got a really strong program. We have excellent faculty, from the research standpoint, from the extension outreach standpoint, and the
Mhm.
applied research in the field, and also in the classroom. So I
Okay.
feel like we're providing a really good educational experience for our students. And I think what we're really ramping up over the last several years is what we call transformational student learning experiences,
Mhm.
the hands-on, life-changing things where you do stuff that's
Okay.
real and it's outside the classroom and it sticks.
Mhm.
And for a lot of students, the classroom learning is part of it, but that may not be what engages their heart or their hands to the same extent as when
Yeah.
they're out either in the greenhouse or they're in the dirt, whatever they are, and they actually do stuff with plants. And they really find a passion there that maybe they didn't know they had.
Mhm.
And I was just talking with one of my faculty yesterday, and he said, he's got a student working with us on our rooftop garden. He's doing a biosystems engineering degree, and he comes from Birmingham. No ag experience in his family, nothing.
Hmm.
Came from the city, came to
Okay.
Auburn, was interested in engineering, got interested in the biological side of engineering, which is housed in the College of Agriculture.
Okay.
Came on board with us on our rooftop team early on, and this coming year he's going to lead that team.
Okay.
And
Nice.
he told Dr. Wells, working with plants is what it's his thing. And he's leading a team of students up in a very high profile place doing some amazing work, and he absolutely loves it. It's his passion. So we have I'd say we don't have that many students that come from a traditional farming background.
Mhm.
And they look at things a little bit differently. And so they may be a little bit more creative in the way they try and figure out how to solve problems.
Mhm.
But we do have some kids that come from a traditional background, but a lot of them don't. And the linkage between horticulture and culinary sciences is now becoming so much more trendy, more popular, more interesting.
Yeah.
We have a great linkage here at Auburn for that, and I think that's really helping to solidify that horticulture is not just about beautiful things in the greenhouse and beautiful things in your yard, but it's about vital nutrition and delicious food,
Yeah.
and how we can then work with chefs and work with restaurants and sustainability, local, human nutrition,
Mhm.
and year-round production because what CEA can make possible. So we have some great programs here. We call it Food U.
Hmm.
Um, Actually, we're in the process of rebranding that a little bit,
Okay.
and that's because our provost has taken a particular interest in our project and wants to help us. She said, "Why don't you call it?" The acronym would be FULL, FULL.
Okay.
So, Food University Learning Laboratory,
Oh, I like that.
which sort of encompasses everything that we're doing from the uh, growing stuff in the greenhouse, growing stuff in raised beds, growing stuff in the dirt, growing stuff in vertical farms,
Mhm.
and then how all of that engages with our campus dining system, our high-end culinary program, the really nice restaurants that we have, and puts all those pieces together, um, where our students are learning how to function in that environment, and it's it's really exciting.
It sounds like it. Yeah.
And so, I have some bullets that I've made notes of because I talk about this to different audiences, and I was actually invited to give a departmental seminar in Nebraska last month
Okay.
about this. I didn't actually make the presentation because my wife had an illness, and
Oh.
fortunately she's okay now. But
Okay.
so I've got this great presentation that I was going to give that I'll give in the fall.
Okay.
But I was purposely trying to identify some of what we call high impact learning experiences,
Mhm.
because those are the things that really help to stick, and they go across even disciplines or um, programs. So we have students from a dozen different majors that are participating with us in this Food U program,
Okay.
and all the students get paid for their work. They are part-time employees, and they work in these different elements of our program where we grow in the dirt, We grow in raised beds. We grow in greenhouses, vertical farms, and a rooftop garden.
Yeah.
And they get cross-trained in all these different areas. And in some cases, we're growing maybe one crop a year in the dirt, whereas in the vertical farm, we're swapping out every 5 weeks. We're putting in a new crop of lettuce.
Right.
And, working with chefs, learning how to grow in different substrates, learning how to manage in an environment where there's literally no sunlight at all, where you're inside a container, to where you're out in the field and everything in between,
Hmm.
or like on the rooftop of a building, which is very high light exposure. It's hot, it's pretty brutal. And how do we make plants grow successfully up there?
Yeah.
And then working in teams on these projects where they're trying to develop a schedule. Well, what do the chefs want? Oh, well, the chef wants butterfly pea. Well, what is butterfly pea? How do we grow butterfly pea? Where can we get seeds for butterfly pea?
Yeah.
And so that was a project last year. We talked with our chefs, and they wanted to make a palate cleanser that they could use in their high-end restaurant.
Yeah.
And they said, "Can you guys grow this?" And we're like, "Well, we can try." So we found a seed source and we started growing it, and we figured out we could grow it on trellis in our raised bed garden, and it produces about 200 flowers a day.
Okay.
And we take those flowers to them, and they dry those flowers, and then they use them to extract and make a beverage that they put in a cocktail glass. That's it's a really dark purplish color. And what they do when they serve this in the restaurant is then they pour lemonade, a basil infused lemonade, where they get the basil from the rooftop, they get the flowers from the
Huh.
rooftop or from the raised beds, and it changes the color.
Huh.
And it's a delicious, beautiful drink that they serve in the 1856 restaurant
Okay.
in partnership with us. So what happened there? Well, we're the horticulturists. We figure out how to grow it and how to provide it. They're the chefs. They figure out how to do something really cool that nobody else is doing around town. And our students are the ones that are, learning how to grow the plants and how to utilize it, and then how it's served in a restaurant, and to create something unique and exciting and new.
Sure.
And so, yes, we do provide them with lettuce. We provide them with tomatoes, strawberries, all these kinds of things. But because they're culinary and they have experience from all over the world with different plants that they might use in Thailand or, any other place, we get to grow some of those because they ask us to, and we try and figure it out. And maybe we grow it in the vertical farm, or we grow it in the dirt or on the rooftop. And so we're learning from each other.
Hmm.
And that's building bonds of friendship. It's building collaboration. It's helping us to understand creativity,
Sure.
even in how you might utilize something or present it on a plate. And the students have to figure out things like fertilization, irrigation,
Mm.
pest control. How do we trellis these things? Are they sensitive to sunburn? How long can we grow them in a vertical farm before they have a harvestable product relative to growing it on the rooftop?
Yeah.
And just all these complexities of the challenges of growing plants in different environments, and different plants that we don't traditionally grow, obviously challenges the students to learn things that maybe we don't normally cover in the classroom. I mean,
Sure.
we may cover the basic principles of this is why you need nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But when it's on a rooftop and you're using a drip irrigation system, and you've got the amount of sunlight that you have up there, and the substrate that you're using there, and how quick that substrate drains, that you're putting all this material there, but doesn't seem like the plants are getting what they need. Well, because a lot of the nutrients are getting washed down because the substrate is not holding it adequately. So
Hmm.
then we have to look at different composts and different surface mulches so that we can build the organic matter in that substrate so that it can hold it longer and the plants can take it up. And these are all things you learn
Yeah.
because there's no textbook.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
So it's been fabulously fun. Our students are from a diversity of majors, not all in the College of Agriculture. Like I said, 12 different majors.
Hmm.
And I think some of them are seeing an opportunity in the future where they're even thinking thoughts like, I want to partner with somebody who's going to establish or run a restaurant, and I'm going to be their grower. or I want to run a restaurant and grow my own stuff, or I want to work for a major greenhouse supplier that's growing the cukes, the tomatoes, the peppers, the strawberries that are going to Walmart and Costco and everywhere else. And I want to have the kinds of hands-on experiences as an undergraduate that I would be competitive for those kind of jobs when
Yeah.
I get out of school. So lots of cool stuff going on. And I think in horticulture, we're maybe seeing a renaissance or a rejuvenation of what was sort of traditionally taken for granted, that we just produce beautiful things and delicious things. But now, post COVID, post lockdown,
Yeah.
people seem to be falling back in love with plants and want them to be a part of not only their environment, but also their culinary life. And they're willing, if they have the capacity, if they can afford the groceries, let's
Right.
say, you know, the clamshell of red raspberries and blueberries that people would never have dreamed of 20 years ago, now they're available year round.
Hmm.
And so um, I think people are perhaps more health conscious, at least in their mind.
Yeah.
And you know, the local food movement and accessibility to sustainably produce things that are within a certain radius of where you live, I think those are things that are becoming more permanent
Okay.
in our psyche
Yeah.
and in our consumerism. So I feel like we're at a great time right now. And even though the cost of groceries is gone up very substantially and is a burden for a lot of people, um, I think people have adapted to what is accessible in the grocery store, and they're not necessarily thinking about certain foods as only being available in the summer.
Sure.
You
Yeah,
know,
that
and
makes
that's
sense. Yeah.
and with CEA, I mean, just look at the quality of the strawberries and blueberries we're able to get, whether it's produced in North America or in the Southern Hemisphere. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And I'm really amazed with some of the quality of things that are coming into our country in times of the year when we historically wouldn't have had them. But now with our CEA, we're able to expand substantially on the early end and on the late end, where we can have American produced fruits and vegetables many months of the year,
Hmm.
irrespective of where you live,
Yeah.
which is great.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
You talk about, kind of funneling all these different areas into an interest in working directly with plants. Sort of on the flip side of that, I guess, is, when we talk to, some of the bigger growing operations, or we talk to, company or not company, or an organization like Seed Your Future. And one of the things that they talk about is you can come into an industry like this not having to do anything at all with plants. There's a growing operation. I mean, they need their growers and all that, but you've got roles in marketing, HR, logistics, technology adoption. Is that something that you look at, where you might be working with somebody who, ultimately, for whatever reason, plants, like the plants themselves, may not fall into their wheelhouse, but they're interested in staying in the industry just in a different capacity? Is that something that you guys look at all?
yes, and we have one of our partners who's the director of campus dining for Auburn, Glenn Lothridge.
Hmm.
He works with the sustainability office, and he also works with student teams he sort of assigns them research projects.
Okay.
Um, and so there's some interesting things that they've learned through some of this. And I'd say, first of all, the general answer would be yes, there are some great jobs in these industries. I mean, you look at some of the major greenhouse companies, like let's say in Leamington and Kingsville and in that area, and where they've got greenhouses in Southern Ontario and the Midwest and the South and in Mexico. And,
Yeah.
you know, these are career positions for these people. These are really good jobs. They're ultra high tech. They're using robotics and artificial intelligence and all the really cool stuff, biological control, all these things. And I think as our students are exposed to the food system and the state of the art, it draws students that wouldn't traditionally think of agriculture as something that they would be interested in.
Hmm.
And where we see the combination of, um, let's say, pest management, where all the biological aspects of that, when we think about all the robotics, the lighting, the sensing technology, the ability to predict, all the prediction modeling that's going on. There's really a lot of areas that could involve people that have an affinity to math,
Mhm.
to all different areas of technology. We recently hired a guy. He's what we call a smart systems engineer who works in horticultural systems,
Okay.
and he's interested in everything from sensors to robotics to rovers to he's got systems that we're using in greenhouses and nursery pads and in high tunnels.
Okay.
And he's got really smart students that are engineering students that are looking at horticultural systems to solve problems.
Mhm.
So they're coming at it from an engineering standpoint, but it's a horticultural system.
Yeah.
So like in the greenhouse, they've got a robot that, well, it's a rover basically with cameras on it, and it can go down and it's taking digital photographs of the plants at different stages of development. And they're developing a smart app so they can estimate crop load
Okay.
and predict when harvest would be, harvest timing and all those kinds of things, and even determine average fruit size and all of that. And he's also got another one that's going down and using different technology to look at drought stress
Okay.
and screen germplasm for tolerance to drought, which for us is an issue with some of our blueberry cultivars.
Sure.
Um, and my friend Glenn, who's in the campus dining, one of the things that he's looked at is data for students that relates to student success.
Okay.
This is interesting. So it's not exactly horticulture, but it relates to student behavior that involves food.
Mhm.
And they are able through the student system where they have a ID card and there's a certain amount of money that goes on that card for a meal plan. And every time they have a transaction, it registers in the system. And it's not like we're keeping track of the students by name and spying on them or anything, but they're able to track the number of transactions per student that they have on campus in the dining halls,
Mhm.
and relate that to student success in terms of graduation, in terms of their GPA, and those types of things. And one of the things that he has found over a couple of years is that the students that stay on campus for a longer period of time during the day and that are buying meals in the various food courts that we have on campus, generally there's a relationship between that and their success as a student.
Okay.
And why is that? Well, part of the reason is that they're staying on campus. Part of the reason is that when they're on campus, they go to class.
Mhm.
When they're on campus, they meet with student teams that they're working on a project on together, or they're going to the library, or they have a general, perhaps better a structured day, and maybe they're more attentive to their studies. Hopefully they're eating healthy, and
Right.
that's impacting them from a health standpoint. It's probably more fellowship they're having with other people, which makes them happier, hopefully. And all that to say that there is a correlation between time spent on campus that's registered by when they buy food and where they buy food and those types of things that relates to their success. And so, but we have, like I said, we have over a dozen majors in our Food U program, and they are from all over campus, like
Okay.
English and chemistry and
Hmm.
math, and not just the College of Ag. And the way that we attract these students to participate is through the students that are in the program already.
Mhm.
They're the ones who help to recruit these other students. Maybe it's a sister or a brother in a fraternity,
Yeah.
or maybe they live in the same dorm and they're like, hey, why don't you come and see what we're doing? Or, that salad bar that we're going to in the Edge Dining Center, I grew that lettuce,
Hmm.
and so they help to recruit friends who have expressed interest. And we really don't recruit for these opportunities as faculty. The students bring their friends and we vet them, and some of them work out, some of them don't, but we've got some that have been with us now for 2-3 years and they are just absolutely phenomenal.
Hmm.
And they didn't start off in horticulture,
Okay.
and they may not even be in horticulture now.
Mhm.
We had one student though that, for example, he was in culinary sciences, and he still was so interested in the food growing side that he's changed his major to come over to horticulture.
Huh.
So it's not like we're trying to steal students from any other majors. We just want to make sure that those that come to us, that we give them the best experience we can.
Yeah.
But we're branding what we're doing, we're messaging what we're doing. The NCAA commercial for Auburn University that came out this fall had a little piece of what was happening on the rooftop as part of that 20-second spot, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been viewed over 32 million times.
Nice.
So we're trying to tell the story. We're trying to provide great experiences for our students. And then our students that are in it, as they launch and go off and pursue careers, they are our ambassadors.
Right.
And but I think my peers, like in Ohio State and Georgia and NC State and Florida, I think they've all seen the growth in horticulture interest and opportunities for students. And as the CEA industry continues to grow, like in Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
like in Georgia, like in Ohio, like more moving even into the Southeast, I think we're going to see more opportunities, more demand and interest. And as I understand it from the industry folks, there's just not enough people that are well trained that they can hire in at a sort of a managerial level of a multi-million-dollar greenhouse.
Right.
But if we can get those students in there as an intern, and they're working with the greenhouse manager for, say, a couple summers or something like that,
Yeah.
then they come in and they've been in our Food U program and they've learned in our greenhouses and they have a rapport there, then hopefully they can get into management sooner.
Right.
And what we'd like to say to our students is that, in our program, you have an opportunity to make mistakes that aren't necessarily going to be career altering.
Right. Makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
If you've got a 20 acre greenhouse and you make a wrong decision and everything dies, that's not good.
Yeah.
You may not be there forever. And for us, if it's a vertical farm, one vertical farm that we can replant and get a new crop in there in 5 weeks, that's unfortunate and it's not good.
Yeah.
But we're not going to kick them out of Auburn University.
Right. No, I understand. I understand.
So, and when we try to help the students to learn from each other, learn from mistakes, learn how to troubleshoot. And like I said earlier on, we don't have a textbook for some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we're hoping that we'll maybe write one in the future.
Okay.
But for right now, we're trying to make sure that they get broad cross training, diversity of crops, diversity of growing systems,
Mm-hmm.
Inside, outside, year-round, seasonal, and all of those pieces together. And we also do grow ornamental plants as part of our program too. We grow flowers, we grow herbs. We do that inside and outside.
Mm-hmm.
And so the herbs are used for the culinary program, but the flowers are used for decoration and sometimes for cocktails and presentation on different food dishes and stuff where you have edible flowers. But it's not all just edible stuff. Some of it's ornamental, but
right.
That's part of what we do in our program.
Okay. The last question I have would go back to the panel at Cultivate. Can you maybe talk about what your expectations are for that, and what you hope to see come out of that discussion then?
Yeah, I would like to see what are the innovative ways that the universities are engaging their students and connecting them with industry so that they can be better prepared to get out into these important jobs.
Yeah.
And that they will be exposed to innovative thinking and innovative ways of doing things that could add value to the commercial industry that's there. Okay. Because, these are the vast majority of the commercial greenhouse operations, I would assume, are profitable businesses. Mm-hmm. They know what they're doing. It's not like, vertical farming that still has a lot of bugs and they're still figuring things out, and some businesses invested too much too fast, and the marketing side wasn't all necessarily determined fully, and maybe promises were made and expectations were too high, and I think people overinvested. But greenhouse production is established. I mean, I just think about where I grew up in Essex County in Ontario, I mean, when I scouted greenhouses when I was in college.
Hmm.
We were using beneficial insects for biological control in the tomato and cucumber houses in the 1980s. So this is not new stuff. Yes, we got better greenhouses and we've got artificial intelligence and we've got robotics and all these things we didn't have back then.
Yeah.
But it's a very established business model. The cropping systems are good. The genetics is getting continuously better through breeding. And so we've got businesses that are making money and continue to make money and are expanding.
Yeah.
And that's great. But I'd hope that our students will be able to come out and even add ideas and value that maybe don't exist in some of these businesses that might help them to explore opportunities that they haven't yet explored, or just add a lot of value to an established group and bring that perspective from growing in the Southeast to maybe in the Pacific Northwest or some
Right.
other place,
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll be well cross-trained across the various different disciplines that are important. Because if you only know horticulture, but you don't know anything about pest management, well, you don't have everything there.
Right.
And they need to have a broad understanding of how all these systems work so that the overall environment will be appropriate for plant growth.
Sure.
And but I'd say it's a tremendously exciting time for young people to be looking at the future and where they can make a difference in the world. And everybody in the world eats food.
Yeah.
So to explain to your neighbor what you're doing, it's not like talking about how to invent some new kind of rocket fuel to drive well, we're growing tomatoes year round, and these are the most awesome tomatoes you guys have ever tasted. And I'm helping to make that possible.
Thanks for joining us. You can learn more at greenhousegrower.com. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, and please leave us a rating as it helps other podcast listeners find the show.